Artist Paul Cézanne once said, "A work of art which did not begin in emotion is not art." Today, while you're working with doing grid work, I want you to remember that it is a tool. The artwork doesn't come from the grid. It's refined by the grid. It's cleaned up by the grid. We work better in scale using a grid. But the artwork comes from you. It comes from your hand, it comes from your mind, and it comes from your heart. We learn this in the studio. Welcome to my studio. Welcome back, my artists. Before we get started, if you have not already watched the first video on the introduction to scale, you need to make sure to watch that one. It's going to take you through how to do this first step. We're going to skip over that step in this video and go right to step number 2. Again, if you haven't done step 1, watch the other video, get that completed. Today we're going to be doing a short gridding exercise. This exercise is going to help set the stage for when you go to do the full studio. First thing you're going to need to do is go to Google, and I want you to find an image. I want you to make sure that whatever your image is that you've selected, it's a simple image. In fact, in my demo, I'm going to pick this kitty cat, and it's probably kind of pushing it. It's probably a little bit too complex. Now that I've found the image that I'm going to use, I'm going to go over here to open it in a new screen, and then I'm going to save the picture. If you want to screenshot this one, that's fine for this project, but typically you want to download the file. When you screenshot, it tends to shrink the image, versus if I actually download the actual image, it'll be a larger size. But again, for this project, it's fine. A lot of you may be working on iPads. If you're working on an iPad, again, you can screenshot that and it'll be saved to Photos. That'll be a useful tip to use later on. All right, now we're going to go to griddrawingtool.com. Now that you're on the site, choose your file, and you're going to look for your original image. Once you've located your image, select it and upload it. There are many ways to do what I'm about to show you. I'm going to show you literally the laziest, most basic way of doing it, which is I'm going to do all my editing here on this site. So I'm going to go through my options, and you can see that I can upload it, and I can crop it and all of that, but I'm going to go to adjust. I'm going to desaturate it. In other words, I'm hitting the saturate button. That's going to remove as much color as I can. Obviously, it didn't remove all of it. It's got like a weird blue tone to it. That's okay. I just want to try to make this as monochromatic as I can. Last, I'm going to select grid, and you see it's automatically made a grid for me. I can change the size of that grid. I can change the colors of that grid. I can even change the width of the lines of the grid. For this project, I don't want you to go any larger than 3x5 squares. Our final studio will be a larger one, but for this one, again, 3x5 squares, all the larger you need to go with. Once you've done this, you can download the file, or if you're on an iPad, you can take a screenshot of the file while it's blown up, and then that will be saved in your Photos. If you have access to a printer, great, print out the image. If you don't have access to a printer, then you can use your computer screen or you can use your iPad to view the image. In some ways, viewing the image on your iPad or computer screen is nice because you can zoom in on individual squares. I printed mine so that you can see in the video. Normally, I would just work for the computer screen. There are some advantages to printing out the image. You're going to see them as I show you the next step. First, I want to label my grid. So I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E, and I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. And we'll call this little sliver 0. So now I have my image. It has been gridded. Now I need to go back to my paper. So now on my paper, I'm just going to make sure I have enough room to do this, but I'm going to do an A, B, C, D, E, and I'm going to do a 0, 1, 2, 3. Now, I can see the 0 square is a little bit cut off. So I want to cut that off on my drawing also. It looks to me like it's about a quarter of the way to a third of the way. So I'm going to do it right about there. Again, make sure everything looks nice and even. Is it parallel to this line? Yes. So we'll pull it. All right. So now I know that my drawing is going to live in this box right here. And I'm even going to go a step farther. And I'm going to darken the border. You don't have to do this. Now, some of you might be thinking, Mr. Morris, why did you just have us grid an entire page if we're only using the small portion? Well, because I have no idea what size your image ended up being. And I also have no idea how you ended up figuring out your grid. But you know what? The other reason? This is good practice to get down how to do gridding the right way. All right. From here, it kind of gets basic, but you can overthink this really easily. What I do is, personally, if I printed up the image, I like to fold up the image. I like to kind of make it so that I'm folding along the grid mark, you can see, and then I only have this smaller slice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to A0, and there's nothing there. A1, there's nothing there. A2, you can see there's this little line. So I'm going to look at it. I'm going to try to make sure I have it in the same placement as I see in this box. I can even trace it if I have a copy of it. I'm going to lightly put that line in there. And I can see there's this shadowy shape. So I'm going to draw that in while I'm at it. Pretty simple, right? To draw this one square, it's not too hard. But if I was to try to draw the whole thing all at once, it's a little bit more overwhelming. So I'm going to look at this one. I see this line comes in a little bit under the halfway mark of that box. And it comes up here. So again, I kind of trace it and I make it. That little corner here at B3, not much to that. This one's probably the most complicated one here. I've got part of the cat's muzzle right there in the corner. I've got this dark shape that comes down. I've got this lighter shape that comes up. So I'm just going to play around with how to get this shape in the right way. Once in a while I do want to look at two different squares and how a shape runs from one square into the next. That way I'm making sure I'm linking those shapes together in a way that makes sense. When I'm drawing this eye, I can't think of it as an eye. It's not. It's just a series of shapes. My brain has perceptions about what an eye is. I can't trust my brain. I have to just draw the shapes that I see. And that's about it. I've drawn this first section. Right now it doesn't look like a whole lot, but I'm going to keep on going with it, and you'll see it's going to start pulling together. I've drawn in the bulk of my image. Now I would take my mechanical pencil and ditch it, get myself a regular pencil, and shade it in. The shading in works the same way. You're going to look for the values that you see in one area, and you're going to copy those values on. Make sure that you're not just copying the square, but copying the square and then looking at how does it relate to the next square. This will help your artwork to not have a patchwork look. Alright, and here we are. I have the finished drawing. I have my kitty cat drawn in here now, and I've gridded him in. The last step I would take is to take my eraser and erase any smudges, anything I don't like, maybe put in some of the highlights back into Mr. Kitty, and I might also want to go through and erase my grid lines. That's why it was so important to draw them in lightly.
I'm not worried about it for this because I want you to see the grid lines, but if the grid lines bother you, erase them. Again, you don't have to pick something as complicated as Mr. Kitty here. You can go with something that's much simpler. Now that I have my cat pretty much blocked in and shaded in, I would want to look at my original source image and see if there's any areas where maybe I need to darken or lighten more. For instance, I'm noticing in the photograph that this arm here is very much a darker value than the face is. And here in my drawing, they're kind of the same. So this is a good time for me to take my pencil, and I'm just going to do it once over, just to kind of block out this arm, shade it in just a little bit more. And yeah, I'm losing some of my detail in doing so. So I'm going to have to go through and strengthen my darks after I get done getting this blocked in. Have fun with this. This is a really nice way to give yourself some confidence and make.
My artists, I can't wait to see the finished products that you create from this assignment. Until next time, please remember, be kind to yourself and keep on making art. I'm Mr. Morris. Bye.